Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mindful Living Podcast. I'm your host Charu, and today we're diving into a topic that sounds a little big and a little mystical: evolving human consciousness. For a lot of us, this shows up in regular life. You hit your goals, you got the promotion, you built the business, you did all the right things on paper. Yet there is that annoying quiet voice that says, "Cool, but why do I still feel like something is missing?" If that is you, you are in the right room. Our guests today are Alexander and Viki. They are sacred strategy guides for the game of life. They work with what they call the deck of 52 and source cards to help high achieving humans decode their soul's game plan. They support CEOs, artists, athletes, entrepreneurs who have checked all the boxes yet still feel this itch in their soul. Today, we are going to unpack what evolving consciousness actually means in 2025, how mindfulness fits into that, and we'll also poke at some harder questions. Like, is all this just spiritual rebranding for people who are already privileged? Or is a deck of cards actually helpful for just another story we tell ourselves? So, if you are listening while driving, walking, or hiding from your inbox, take a breath with me. Let us get into it. Alexander and Vicky, it's so nice to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Charu, it's such a pleasure. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yes, great, amazing. So, Alexander and Vicky, let's break this all the way down. That phrase, evolving human consciousness, gets thrown around everywhere. When you say consciousness is evolving, what do you actually mean in real life? Like, what would the average person notice if their consciousness was evolving, not just their to do list expanding?
Well, first of all, I don't know that everyone's talking about it, but I appreciate the idea that maybe everybody is talking about it. That's a nice thought. What it means and what people would notice are two different questions. And so I'll go backwards, starting with what people would notice rather than what it means. What you would notice is that things line up for you. There's more synchronicity and serendipity. The right people show up at the right time, the right doors open, things seem to fall into place as if by magic, effortlessly. Things just work out for you and line up for you. That's what you would notice. That's what the average person would notice. They might dismiss it as coincidence. They might not even notice it at all. Or they might think they got lucky or attribute it to some other factor. They might not even really notice that things are lining up for them because they've evolved their consciousness, because they're more aware and more synchronized in their conscious awareness. What the evolution of consciousness actually means is that there is what we can call a golden spiral of evolutionary process that follows the Fibonacci sequence. It's a mathematical process. It follows mathematical precision and mathematical elegance. It's symbolized by the Queen of Spades. She is the symbol herself of the evolution of consciousness. And the idea is that it's a perfect unfolding that's beautiful, symmetrical, and harmonious and continuous. There's a continual, ever increasing, expanding spiral dynamic that is what evolution of consciousness is and what it looks like. That is a much deeper topic, but to answer your questions, that's what I have to say about that.
Great. But our listeners tell me I'm just trying to pay bills and keep my nervous system from exploding. I don't have time to evolve anything. So if someone is maxed out and doom scrolling at midnight, what's one tiny practical way they can start this evolution through mindfulness? No gurus, no retreats, no 2 hour routines.
First of all, to me, it's about taking our power back and creating our reality by our own choices, empowering ourselves by taking responsibility for how we create our life. And to take responsibility, not to look at the outside world and then respond from that. It's to go within ourselves and take responsibility for how we create our lives. And you do that by knowing our cards to play. We have a template of 13 plus cards to play in what's called our life path. It's based on our date of birth, and it's a magical, extraordinarily accurate system of knowledge based on the regular deck of playing cards. The cards were hidden as a game, but their true meaning is as a spiritual tool of knowledge. They are sacred symbols and they exude energy patterns, and we're playing out those patterns. So, to just start the process of knowing one's cards to play based on their birthday and to start to take in those patterns, like, bring awareness to that, those are the patterns that they are playing, is something that someone can do to start that process, right? To be more powerful in themselves, knowing what they're playing, and then making conscious decisions on purpose as opposed to living by default and being reactive to the outer world.
Yeah.
Yes.
In other words, it takes no time at all. It's an inner responsibility that doesn't take any time, but it's a state of mind. Yeah.
Yes, yes, but that they have to be responsible and willing to be willing to take conscious actions, I believe, right?
Yes, it is true. You need to be responsible for yourself and want to make the change, want to grow and evolve. So for someone, if somebody really isn't interested or wants a quick fix, I think that's like a different kind of person. It does require to have some self-reflection and some, putting something into making yourself better and improving yourself and living your best life. And there is, I don't want to use the word work, but there's play in that. There's focus on that. You do need to focus on that to make it happen.
Yes, yes. I like that you kept it small and non glamorous because people expect enlightenment to look neon and dramatic, but what you're describing is more like quiet software updates. So, why don't we plug into something more concrete, your actual tools? You call yourself sacred strategy guides and you work with source cards in the deck of 52. For someone hearing that for the first time, it might sound like fortune telling or spiritual productivity hacks. What are these cards really, and how do they support mindfulness instead of becoming something people over or outsource their power to?
It's a fantastic question. And that question goes to the heart of what we do and the distinction that we make between what we do and how other people might utilize not just these cards, but any spiritual tool. Because you're right, people can obsess over it. And because we have a life path of cards, people can obsess over their life path of 13 cards. We also have cards that are dealt by mathematics for us each year of our life. And people can obsess over what their coming year cards are. And do I have good money cards this year, or do I have good romance cards this year? You're absolutely right that people can obsess over it and treat it as a fortune-telling parlor trick. And more importantly, what happens in those scenarios is they disempower themselves. Whenever we're looking to the future, we're looking at something that doesn't exist. So we're trying to predict a reality that isn't present, that isn't even real. And whenever we're doing that, we are literally taking ourselves out of the present moment and projecting onto some imagined concept of what we think our future might look like, where the only place we can ever make decisions is in the present moment. The only place we can ever take action is in the present moment. So if we're fortune telling, no matter what we're doing, then we're out of the present moment and we're disempowered. And then we're not going to be able to make the decision that is going to make our life the way we hope and yearn that it could be. So by trying to predict the future, we paradoxically make our future worse for ourselves. So we emphasize that in how we teach these source cards, that these are a tool for awakening, to see what's present in this present moment right now, so that you can make more informed and more enlightened decisions right now in this present moment. That's how we emphasize it and teach it. And we can't stop people who try to look into their future. It's kind of human tendency, the fearful anxiety of what's the future hold for me, and can you predict the future for me? That's based on fear and anxiety. And if people are coming from a place of fear and anxiety, then that might be what they do. But we do our best to teach that this is a tool for awakening in the present moment.
I'd love to give an example of that. When I first learned this system of the cards, I had someone give me a reading, and they told me about my cards that were in play for that year. So there are cards that are for our whole life. Our life path of cards is for our whole life, but then there are cards in play for that specific year based on my birthday, including the year, based on how old I am. And one of my yearly cards was the Ace of Spades. And the person said to me, that could mean that you could lose some people in your life this year that you're really close to. And I had that.
Because the Ace of Spades can mean death. That's where
Thank
that
you.
comes
Yes, Ace of Spades, new beginnings, endings. It represents consciousness, belief systems. And I proceeded for that whole year to have that, what that person had said in the back of my mind, wondering what would happen in a fearful way. I was like, oh my God, one of my parents sick? Are they going to die? Like, what's going to happen? My friend, what's going to happen? And in the end, no one close to me passed. And I realized that, oh, I was in fear mode, using that in fear mode as a prediction. And instead, I could utilize the information and say, okay, the Ace of Spades is about initiating new consciousness, new belief systems about myself, about life. Let me use that energy as my advantage to make my life better. What belief systems can I let go of? Can I end? Right? And what belief systems can I initiate and start? Which the perfect example is I can say, oh, I'm not going to use this as a prediction energy. I'm going to initiate a new way of doing it and a new belief that, to empower myself, um, as opposed to being in the fearful place of what's going to happen in the future.
Yes, yes, agreed, agreed. I feel like there are some stuff that we as humans shouldn't dig deeper into. And I feel like trying to know the future is one of it. So I figured that you put your cards wide open for your clients. It's that we can provide you these stuff, but some stuff shouldn't be touched. So we won't be helping you for that. That's really courageous and very right for you, I feel like.
Well, I want to emphasize that it's not that we shouldn't dig deeper. We can always dig deeper into the depths of reality and the heights of reality. The future doesn't exist. There's nothing to dig into. There is no future. Future is an idea. It's a concept. The only thing that exists is the present moment. So what we emphasize is don't get lost in something that doesn't exist.
Great. Such a great way to put that. Right. Uh, One thing I'm also curious about is high achievers love frameworks, human design, Enneagram, Myers Briggs personality test. There's always a new matrix. How do you stop people from turning the source cards into another identity clutch? Like, I ghost people because that's just my card, instead of using it mindfully to take responsibility.
That's so great because it could really be like we blame our cards to play. Oh, well, I'm playing this card, so then it's okay I did that. And that's really not the way to use it. You're using it as a tool. We are not our cards. We are playing our cards. So we're using them as a tool. We're utilizing the energy. How can I play this energy? I can play it on the high side. I can play it on the low side. Which way am I going to go? How am I going to play it? If I play it on the low side, can I accept that I did that, learn from it, accept, what the energy is, honor myself and acknowledge myself that I didn't play it so well that time, but then say, well, all right, I learned from this and I can accept this and I can accept all of me. And next time I'm going to see if I can play it better and I'm going to play it well.
Mm.
Like that's how you play it. It's not that I am that. I am not that.
That's one thing, again, that we do our best to emphasize whenever we're telling people their cards to play. I will never tell them you are a seven of clubs. I will always say you are playing a seven of clubs, because we are not our cards. For lack of a better word, we are a soul. We're an infinite soul playing a human game. The cards show you the game construct. They show you your game tokens, your avatar that you're here to play. So you can never blame that for why you've made a decision, because it has no power over you. Well, unless we're unconscious to it and we give it power over us. We always have the power to choose how we want to play out our patterns, play our cards.
Yes, yes. I feel like take responsibility for your play and don't just blame your cards. Right. Okay. I appreciate that you're naming responsibility so directly because without that, mindfulness becomes that cute aesthetic candles, crystals, journals, but zero change. So let's talk about the people who finally do look in the mirror and don't like what they say. You work with people who are already impressive on paper, CEOs, artists, athletes, as I mentioned. What invisible patterns do you see trapping high achievers? And how does mindfulness help them actually interpret those patterns instead of just pushing harder or posting more?
Well, the mindfulness comes with the mindfulness of knowing their cards to play. Often, it may look good on paper, but then there is something missing for them. And it's most likely that they don't know the actual energy patterns that are in play for them versus someone else. So they might be trying to follow someone else's teachings, but those teachings really aren't right for that particular person. Let's say, for example, so in the cards, we have the four suits. Hearts is emotions. Clubs represents the mind. Spades represent consciousness. Diamonds represent what you value most in your life and the physicality of reality. So if somebody is playing a heart card their whole life, which is all about emotions, expressing emotions, tremendous emotional intelligence, but they were brought up like with don't express your emotions, just use your will, just go for it and make it happen. And, like stiff upper lip, don't express don't express yourself. And then like they're this high achiever and they make it like they're top of their company, but then they're like missing something. Most of the time is that well, you're playing a heart card. Are you like feeling and expressing your feelings and your emotional intelligence, like even in the workplace? And being vulnerable, like that's really important. So,
Yes, that's a great example. And it can go across the board of the different suits where people follow the script of what success looks like and how to be successful. And they work really, 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 really hard. And they get up early in the morning and they stay late and they do all the things that make them successful, but they're not in tune with themselves. As Vicky said, maybe they're playing a heart card as their birth card and they're completely out of touch with their own feelings. No matter how successful they are on paper, they're not going to feel fulfilled or satisfied because they're out of touch with themselves.
Yes, yes. I feel like for people like them, it's very necessary to take time for them. But I also feel like most our listeners feel if I slow down, I'm scared what I might come up. Old pain, grief, shame, the stuff under the hustle. So they feel like why is facing this discomfort worth it? So how do you explain that awareness won't break them even it feels like it might?
Well, it might. If they're really out of touch, then yes, it might. But I would say it's better to have that breakthrough within a constructive context of proactively seeking a breakthrough versus having life break you down and having a breakdown in life or a midlife crisis or suddenly a rupture in your career or a rupture in your marriage because life breaks you down because you're so out of sync and out of tune that you get a rupture or a breakdown in your life. Much better to proactively seek that breakthrough, whether through working with us or could be another modality or method, but much better to actively seek that breakthrough than to have life break you down.
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to add that um, if they're not seeking the breakthrough, they're denying a part of themselves that exists. So that despair that they are afraid to go into, if that exists within them, then they are saying, I do not want any part of that. And then they are also saying, I don't want any part of me. So it's so important actually for people to really feel those scary things and acknowledge those things within oneself and accept, well, at the moment, I do feel that way. That's really important. That's a huge part of the healing process, to really acknowledge those parts. And then what I see often is when someone acknowledges those parts of themselves and really feels those feelings in them, something softens because they're seeing themselves more clearly. And then they're able to move out into other spaces and more joy and, other feelings and move forward in themselves and change and what they really do long for. So,
Yes, yes, agreed. I feel like pain is also a part of us, and we must embrace it as much we embrace the positivities around us. And I love that you're basically saying the pain is already running the show, and mindfulness just turns the lights on, so you renegotiate the script. So, can we just zoom out and get practical for wanting an accessible starting point? Let's imagine someone driving home from a long day. They feel that soul itch you mentioned before. They know something needs to shift, but they don't know where to start. If each of you had 30 seconds to offer one tiny micro experiment in mindfulness for the week, what would it be? Something tiny, doable, repeatable.
Go to thesourcecards.com, put in your birthday on the home page, and get your free reading. And read about your birth card and your personality card, which are the two primary cards in your life path of 13 cards. And start there and get a little taste, a little dose, and see how it resonates with you.
Great, great. After this, I was going to ask for the ways.
When is your birthday, by the way? We're curious. You've been a lovely with this shoe. Yeah, what's your birthday?
It's 15 May 2004.
We're looking you up in my book here. Vicky's looking you up.
four diamonds. Let's see. May 15th, four diamonds.
Four of Diamonds is your birth card with an Eight of Hearts personality. So you have a big heart personality and the Four of Diamonds underneath as your birth card. You're here to bring structure and order to what you value the most, to organize things that matter to you.
Yeah, they did actually. Wow. It was so simple. Out on paper.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you really like the Eight of Hearts just has such beautiful energy in emotional expression and how you even articulate in this interview and just like weaving it all together. Like you really have a beautiful way of doing that. I really feel your cards that you're playing and how you articulate and hold the space for this conversation.
That's great. Thank you. And I feel like our listeners might have just tasted the medicine right now. Now you can see, like, practically, they did it on the spot. So, you know, the correct guys for you. So, yes, before we wrap this episode, for our listeners, I know you already said how to connect with you, but if there's anything to add, please tell us.
So again, thesourcecards.com. There's lots to explore. Find out your first two cards in your life path. I would also suggest getting Alexander's book, Play Your Cards Right: A Sacred Guide to Life on Earth. That's where you can find all 13 cards in your life path and just start exploring your whole life path of cards. And we're also on a lot of social media platforms, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and it's at the source cards. You can find us in all these places.
Yes, great. So the social media links, the website link, the book link, all will be in show notes. So I request all our listeners to go and check that too. It was an interesting and wonderful conversation with you. So thank you for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having us. It was a pleasure.
You asked us great questions. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Alexander and Vicky, thank you both for bringing nuances to a topic that usually lives in extremes. It's either dismissed or nonsense or glorified as a magic solution. You two sit right in the middle, honest, grounded, strategic, and full of heart. For everyone listening, if something in this conversation poked you, that's good. That discomfort might be your conscious evolving. Not because you suddenly feel zen, but because you've become aware of the gap between the life you're living and life you know you're meant for. Here's my challenge for you this week. Pick one moment each day to interrupt autopilot. It could be before you open your inbox, before you say yes to another obligation, or before you numb out with your favorite app. Pause, breathe, notice what you feel, and ask yourself, if I were playing the game of life consciously right now, what would I choose? You don't have to quit your job, break up, or move to the mountains. You just have to make one choice today that is slightly more aligned than yesterday. That's how consciousness evolves in the real world. Alexander and Vicky, where can, as I, sorry, I already asked you, where can our listeners find you? That's why. And to everyone listening, thank you for spending this time with us. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who looks successful on the outside but is quietly questioning what's next on the inside. I'm Charu, and this is the Mindful Living Podcast. Take care of your mind, your body, and your timeline. And remember, you're not just surviving the game of life, you're allowed to learn how to play it on purpose. We'll see you on the next episode.